Hey there fellow exiles, this is a follow-up update video to my Impending Doom League Start Guide for Path of Exile 3.21 Crucible League. This video has been requested by quite a few people, and there were a few commonly asked questions that I really wanted to address, so well, here we are. First off, before we get into the video, I would really like to thank you guys for helping me hit 100 subscribers on this channel. This honestly means a lot to me, and a huge thanks to Steelmage for linking my guide on his stream and channel as well, as that's really helped boost my progress. I will also be posting more updates on this build in the future, so definitely stay tuned if you want to keep updated on that. So without further ado, let's get into it. So to begin with, I would like to answer a few common questions that I kept getting, so that if other people have these questions and they have a place they can come back and refer to. And the first question was, why does my Impending Doom take 2 costs to proc? So one could be due to the CDR reason, which I mentioned in the build guide, where your CDR, depending on how much cooldown recovery rate you have, you need a specific amount of cast speed, and you don't want to go over a certain maximum cast speed. This is explained in further detail in the actual guide video, so I would suggest going back to that and just looking through that again. Another reason, actually, which I forgot to mention in the guide, is that it could be your AoE. So the gem levels actually scale the curse radius on your curses. As you can see, a level 20 Enfeeble has plus 10 to curse radius, and a level 1 Enfeeble doesn't have any modifier. Because they have a lower radius, this also means that they overlap less, and with less overlaps, they don't consistently overwrite the Despair Curse in your 6th link, and then therefore don't consistently proc Impending Doom on the first cast. So it's very important to get all your curses at a decently high level for this 2 cast phenomenon to basically not happen anymore. I can actually demonstrate, although this is a bit of an extreme example, with level 1 gems, and I can actually show you how even with the correct cast speed, it takes me 2 casts to actually proc, and I can do that again over here, where the first cast doesn't actually proc Impending Doom, and then I have to cast again. Well, my Herald of Agony is killing everything, so that's kind of ruining it. But yeah, here you go. Right, I cast once, it doesn't do anything, and then I have to cast again. But if you have the higher level gems with the radius increase, as you can see, 1 cast procs the Doom Blast. Now, of course, I don't have all my poison chance, so it's not prolifing, but you get the idea. So that's basically the answer to that question. The second question was about which cast speed you should check for to calculate on the spreadsheet. Should you be using the cast speed of your Despair or the cast speed of your Impending Doom? So one thing is that the Impending Doom is actually a trigger. It is not, we're not actually casting Impending Doom. So whenever you're referring to the spreadsheet, please look at your Despair cast speed in your POB and not your Impending Doom cast speed, and make sure to remove the modifier to our cast speed in the POB right here in the top left from the custom modifier section before you go and check the cast speed. The third question was actually about my Divine Blessing and why it has a mana cost. So quite simply put, even mine has a mana cost right now. Quite simply put, the Divine Blessing has 3 sources of mana cost reduction. One source of mana cost reduction is the Inspiration support, and the second source of mana reduction is actually the reduced mana cost of skills during Flask Effect craft on one of our flasks, which is then scaled by all the Flask Effect that we have on the tree, as well as on Pathfinder. This brings it up to a very, very high amount of reduced mana cost. However, it doesn't bring it down to 0. And in the POB, I actually use an anomalous increased duration support, which further reduces the cost of the Divine Blessing. Now, unfortunately, the issue I'm running into is that I'm currently playing in Chat SF League, as you can see over here, which means because it's a private league, I have very limited access to things like alternate quality gems. They just don't exist on the market. So one thing that I will mention here is that I have decided to go Eldritch Battery. Now, while it does cost 3 points, I do get a Divine Blessing for it. And while this isn't ideal for endgame, because of how point starved the build is, this is still a very powerful option early because Malevolence does give you a lot of damage. So it's very nice to be able to have Malevolence just by speccing into Eldritch Battery, and then of course having a little bit of ES on your gear coming from Vixens, scaling a little bit from these nodes as well. Now I would recommend get a little bit of ES somewhere else, although it isn't necessary. I have a little bit on my belt, but again, this is not something that's particularly required. Your Malevolence shouldn't cost much. Anyway, so moving on to the next question was about the links. A lot of people were asking and saying that 4 blue and 2 green is actually very difficult. What should you run if you have 1 red? So actually I'm actually using cruelty support because I'm in the same situation where I'm unable to acquire 4 blue and 2 green stuff. Now, it's not particularly hard to get this. It's only like 160 chromatic orbs on average. However, due to, again, limited access to resources, I've decided not to just waste my chromatics on a very budget stuff. And I don't want to just dump all my resources into a stuff that I'm planning on replacing soon anyway. And it's for that reason that I'm running cruelty support instead of deadly ailments. So my current 6 link is void manipulation, despair, spell cascade, cruelty, awakened unbound ailments, and impending doom. And yeah, so instead of wasting chromatics, you can use a cruelty support. This is weaker on bosses because you don't hit 40% cruelty effect, so getting deadly ailments is still a significant boost to your damage. However, it's not that big of a deal, at least in the early game. Now, with all the questions out of the way, the build update. So, the leveling experience for the build was great. I leveled as Toxic Rain all the way up into yellow maps very comfortably, and I managed to get some basic gear ready. I actually have some of my leveling gear in one of these tabs. Yep, I have a lot of my leveling gear in here. And then I faced a major challenge. And I wanted to respec into this build so bad that I decided to not listen to my own advice, and I respec'd before I actually had all the gear. And this led to a complete mental and gameplay spiral of me being stuck in low red maps with nothing but rare items and a Vixens, no 4th lab, no flasks on a Pathfinder, struggling to fix the build. That's actually part of the reason why this update video is coming out so late. If I'd actually listened to my own advice, this update video would probably come out one day earlier. Anyway, the main reason for all of these problems was that, again, I'm playing in a private league. I thought it would be closer to trade, but it's actually a lot closer to having a group self-found league. And I had the currency, but I just couldn't. None of the things I needed existed on trade. I needed oils for annoyance, and they just didn't exist on trade. And I needed the flask craft, and it just didn't exist on trade. And I needed mana reduction on my rings, and they just didn't exist on trade. And because there were just so many things that I couldn't get, I couldn't just buy Elrion jewelry. I suddenly had to change my atlas around and move a lot of things, and I basically had to SSF pretty much everything. In the end, I did end up being lucky enough to find someone to craft the flask craft for me by the end of day 2, but again, it was a stressful experience. However, post respec, I can very, very happily say that I am very happy I started this build. I cannot express how much fun I'm having playing Impending Doom, and it's probably the most fun I've had on a league start. This build now in its current state is mapping very, very comfortably, and I'm able to do Crucible content really consistently. I have in fact been doing the league mechanic every map after the respec. I even have a stuff in my inventory ready to cook, and I've adjusted my loot filter to include staves so that we can keep cooking and keep making really good weapons. I think I have one here which I also plan on combining later on with hopefully a cooldown recovery war staff. My current staff is actually pretty good. I managed to get this after 3 combinations using the geodes, and in my experience they seem fairly consistent. um, it is still RNG, but it's not as bad as I expected. But then again, I don't have a very large sample size for combining these things, so I don't really know. But at least in my experience, it's not so bad. And finally, as for bosses, again, severe lack of bosses in the league. However, I have done a Cortex myself, and I have also done a Shaper. I may have witnessed both of them and had no issues. They were both completely deathless. And I also did a Formed invite. And again, that was completely deathless, and I just face tanked everything in the invite. So the defenses of this build are actually holding up very well. And one point of concern that I would like to add is that my chaos res is very low, so you probably want to get this higher. I have died to poison a few times, which is a bit frustrating, especially because again I don't have leech, because I don't have an alt quality void manipulation, and then not having chaos res on top of that, it makes poison particularly deadly. But yeah, so I'll actually go ahead and showcase a Conqueror map for you guys right now, just so you can see how the build performs on a single target. It's actually pretty good. I actually kind of like it. I am only now coming to the realization that I probably should have used a Horizon Orb on this map before running it, because I don't want you guys to see me clear this shit map. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and copter once we get to the boss. Okay, well now we're at the map boss, so you guys can see at least the damage on the map boss. I'm just gonna activate my Malevolence, proc my Withering Step. As you can see, it's fairly comfortable. I'm just gonna drop a portal because I haven't actually done this boss before, so I don't know how this is gonna go. But yeah. So again, Malevolence, Withering Step, and just Doom Blast away. Shouldn't really have any problems for the most part. And yeah, the boss is down. So as you can see, my single target's actually pretty good. I'm not really having any issues with the build anymore now that I've sorted my gear out. And yeah, so that's the update. I will link a POB with my gear down below so you guys can check it out. It's not super impressive, but I will try to post another build update once I've made some significant upgrades to the build. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire build update. If you have any questions, any additional questions that I haven't answered in this video, please do ask them in the comments down below. I'm always happy to leave a reply. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.